Hi there, this is Bob, and this is the HIGHERWAY podcast. And today I've got an old friend of mine, Don Heatrick. How are you doing, Don?
I'm very well, Bob. It's good to see you. It's been
yeah,
quite
it's
a
good
while.
to see you. We haven't seen each other for, it's got to be about 15 years now.
I think it probably is.
Yeah.
At least that, I think.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw you would have been in Bury St Edmunds back in the old days of Muay Thai.
That's right.
Down in Bury.
I think the last time was actually, we probably invited you down to do like a grading for us and seminar.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
While we were still sort of hiring school halls and things like that, as was most common around then.
You just moved into I think Nick Pament, who trained you. Nick Pament.
Yes.
Just for those that don't know, I'm gonna have Nick Pament on here. He's got an interesting life story. But yeah, I think Nick had just moved into that gym on that industrial estate just off the A14.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Well, it was
Unit 1. By coincidence, Nick moved out of that place.
Yeah.
And then I moved in there and set up it was empty for ages. And then it was one of the few industrial units that actually had the correct business use to be able to run a martial arts gym in there.
Yeah.
So we were back in there probably, I don't know, it was 2 years after Nick had moved out of that.
Yeah. So that was with Richard, wasn't it? Was that with Richard?
That's right. Yeah. And Richard's still there now. Yeah.
So Unit 1's still going for anybody listening. They're down in Bury St Edmunds. There's a plug. Quick bit of advertising.
Well, I'm not actually. Yeah, so I'm not actually there anymore. So Richard runs that one. That we kind of had different ideas about how we wanted the business to run.
Right.
So I moved out and kind of just started training people privately. So I was doing that rather than sort of like the big groups. So I've got my own sort of setup as a one-to-one studio, and with all of course the strength and conditioning stuff and all that kind of side of things as well.
Yeah, so, which of course we'll want to talk about today as well.
Yes, yeah.
At some point.
It's all part of that sort of performance puzzle, and that's kind of what I'm into. Anything that
sort
of makes people better.
You got a funny career, really, because if I remember, didn't you train as a mechanical engineer at some point?
Yeah.
Was that your degree?
That's right. Yeah. So that was my proper job.
Yeah. But that never happened, did it? How long did that last?
Well, 18 years. So
Oh, right.
So I was doing that for 18 years. Started off as a craft trainee and worked through, did an apprenticeship and all that kind of stuff. Did my my studies at the same time, and ended up in the design department doing all that and heading up teams in there and doing that sort of thing.
Okay.
So I was doing all of that, all fine. But in parallel to all of that, I've always been doing contact sports.
Yeah.
Initially, it was actually American football was the thing I was into.
Right.
So unless there was contact, I kind of didn't like anything where there wasn't the physicality. And I've always been interested in martial arts, but never. Kind of earlier days, I guess, in the country. I mean, we were talking, up in the Northwest, there was Muay Thai, different regions in the country, different martial arts. In East Anglia, not too much really going on, not anything serious.
No.
So I kind of gravitated towards contact sports, but American football was the one I got into. There was a lot of strategy and tactics to that as well. It wasn't just the person with the ball; you could go up and hit and knock over and stuff. So I really enjoyed all of that. And I was doing that in parallel to all of my engineering studies and my full-time job as an engineer. And one year, the coach for the American football team, they all tend to be US servicemen, he got stationed somewhere else. The team disbanded for a year. Oh. And I was like, well, what the hell am I going to do to keep myself fit in the meantime?
Yeah.
One of the guys on my engineering course was doing Koshenkai karate. And he goes, you think you're a tough guy? Come and do this. And that was enough. As soon as I did that, it was like, oh, I definitely prefer martial arts to American football now. It happened to coincide with me meeting my wife, Deborah, at the same time, and the training days for American football on the weekends when it was her only days off. So there was all of that kind of going on at the same time. But long story short, really martial arts became kind of like my passion, going from like a team sport where, to be honest, sometimes the position I used to play was running back, which is the guy who kind of gets the ball a lot, and it's
Right.
all preset plays and things. You're meant to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
The rest of the team didn't know the playbook too well. I was kind of the one that would get smashed for them, misremembering what they had to do, you know. And I'm like, come on, learn the bloody playbook, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
one getting smashed for this. And going from that, where, you know, you're kind of almost the victim of the group still, and some aren't doing as much as they should do, to then go into martial arts, and it's like, do you know what? Whatever I put into this, I get out of it. And that really sold it to me. And the fact that it was full contact, and there was so much more to it in terms of the whole sort of, well, I refer to it as like mind, body, spirit. It all sounds really cheesy, but that sort of,
no, not really, no.
yeah. Well, yeah, you get it all, don't you? You know,
yeah, of course, yeah, I understand it completely. Yeah,
that sort
I
of
mean,
mental side.
it's an individual. I mean, you know, you're probably never destined to be a team player in that sense.
Right. Yeah.
You think? I mean, because I know I was drawn to individual sports when I was at school. I preferred individual sports because it just relied on me being able to do something, as opposed to having trust in the rest of the team. And as you say, when you're doing the American football, which I know nothing about, my brother played a lot of it up in Newcastle,
right,
a hell of a lot of it. But if the rest of the team can't be bothered to take an active engagement with it, you know, you're having that same passion, then sure, that's when the team falls apart, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
So
it's funny. I think I'm very much an introvert by nature.
yeah.
So there's a benefit to being in a team, in that I remember sort of traveling to games and all the rest of it. And of course, you know, everyone, especially when it's a team you know is good, and they have this reputation, and you're sort of traveling up there, and everyone's kind of bouncing off each other for support and to kind of get their emotions up when some of them are really feeling like, oh, we're on a hiding to nothing here. And that's the really the good part of the team, in that, you know, when someone's flat, someone else is bringing you up and all the rest of it. And I guess, you know, in solo sports, there's still that to an extent, because there is like the corner team, and everyone is sort of looking after you as well.
Yeah, do you know, as you were saying that, I was thinking, actually, although I've been working in an individual sport all my life, it's actually been a team event. Because it is a group of people, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. Yeah, and it's then, I mean, that's what I've really enjoyed about well, why I think Muay Thai for me in particular was, I've kind of sort of boiled down to kind of see what are my core values, kind of do that whole sort of inward reflection thing, and what's important to me, what isn't, why do I steer a certain way, why am I happy doing this and not doing this. And Muay Thai for me, I needed that push outside of the comfort zone to really find out where my real limits were, because every time I pushed, they were always further than I actually thought they were. And I could have settled and said, that's enough.
Yeah.
Muay Thai was that thing that made me get out there by myself, being an introvert, and do it, and either succeed or not based on what I'd done. And obviously there is that component of everybody else around you and supporting you as well. But when the push came to shove, it was me and an opponent in the ring, and that's, I've got to deal with this now. And I just felt I personally really growed the most doing that. And for me, for that growth to be there, it needed to have a real physical component to it. And ultimately, the risk of being knocked out or stopped in some way was the ultimate there for me to really take this seriously and get as much as I could from the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk a bit later on about your career, because, you know, you did push yourself outside your comfort zone, and you did very, very well. However, I just want to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned Kyokushinkai karate. So that was your first foray into the martial arts. And for those that don't know anything about Kyokushinkai, do you want to explain how that works?
Yeah. Well, it's
pretty brutal.
I mean, I didn't realize this at the time. To me, it was like, oh, this is a karate class. But this was the style that my friend at the time was doing. I went along to that, and to be honest, of all the karate styles, it would have been the best one for me. You know, that's because there's nothing kind of just the shapes for the sake of the shapes. It's all about effect, which effectively what Muay Thai is as well.
Yeah.
I really got on well with it. It's solid. It's full contact. The competition that I never actually got as far as doing is all sort of full contact to the body. but no punches to the head. Full contact kicks to the head, you could do whatever you want, and you just wore these little elasticated things that didn't really do too much, and you were pummeling away at each other. But the bit that kind of turned me off of that was just the whole no contact to the head.
Yeah.
With the punches, and watching people kind of sparring and things, or kumite, as you'd call it in that. I was like, the habits are all wrong. If I wanted to use this for self-protection, I could see the habits being formed of guarding the body against punches, but not the head. And I'm like, well, the first thing someone's going to do to me, if it is out and about, is going to be a swing at the head. So I was like, I need something that's going to deal with that.
It always struck me as strange because my background was karate as well, and I loved the idea of Kyokushinkai. But it was the same thing. It was like, well, why don't the hit to the head, the kick to the head?
Yes.
I mean, it's like ridiculous, really. I mean, yeah, I know you'll get the face would be cut and smashed up, but by the punches. But then it could be with the heel or the edge of a foot or the ball of a foot, or do some serious damage. Knock teeth out.
That's right. Well,
so how long were you involved in Kyokushinkai before you started to make that leap? Change?
I think it was. I did 2 gradings worth. I can't remember what period of time that would have been now.
Right.
So I did the first 2 gradings, and at that point, do you know what happened was? I mean, actually, karate wasn't my first martial art. When I was very young, I only did it for, again, probably 2 or 3 gradings. I did judo, so traditional judo.
Good old judo. Well, that's a contact sport, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I did enjoy that, but I'd got to the stage, everyone that I'd graded with, my age and size, had all kind of, they sort of peel away, don't they? They sort of start to fade away. And I was the only one sort of left my size, and everyone else was a hell of a lot bigger than me. And I got to a stage where it's just frustrating, because trying to practice the throws on them, if they decide they didn't want me to throw them, which most of them didn't, because I was a little kid, and they were like, no, just sit back, and I just couldn't move them. And I kind of lost interest then, because I couldn't develop the technique. And so I'd stopped doing that. But I must have been 7 or 8, I guess, then.
Okay. Yeah.
So I did a sort of few gradings in that, and then reached that point, whereas I'm not really getting anywhere now. I'm just turning up and I'm not learning anything. So I kind of didn't want to do that. But then I got other contact sports, and I kind of got my fill that way. Eventually got turned back to martial arts, which has always been there. And after the Shinkai karate, I actually went to a kickboxing club, a local kickboxing club, because they were doing full contact, punches to the head and all the rest of it. And I was like, this, what I actually wanted was Muay Thai.
But there was none around.
No one did it. No one did it.
No, I know that part of the country, specifically when I first met Nick Pammond. I think he was the first Muay Thai club down there. I think he must have been. There was, and I still think they're pretty thin on the ground anyway, aren't they?
They are, yeah, they are.
That part of the country.
Around in our sort of region, yes. Yeah, I mean, Nick was really good that he would be forever looking out at different martial arts, and he was always, whether it was traditional karate, which was his original background, or a screamer with all the sticks and stuff, the Kali stuff, Muay Thai, he was always sort of pulling all these different things in. And as soon as Nick introduced Muay Thai to our region, I was there like a shot, and it was like, yep, here we go. Now I can learn, and that was kind of how I took up with Muay Thai. And as soon as I did Muay Thai, it was, I mean, the elements of judo, I guess, with the clinch work, all of that came in. The fact that, the kickboxing that I'd been doing, the rules have kind of evolved these days to sort of mimic a little bit more Muay Thai is doing. But there were no low kicks, no knees, no elbows, definitely no clinch or anything like that. Going to Muay Thai, there's now, okay, these are the tools that your body has and can use. And you know what? You can use them.
I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with everything you're saying. Because, for me, and it's actually mirrored by quite a lot of the Thai boxers that I've been interviewing on this series, and they all say the same thing. It was like when they found Muay Thai, it was like, this is it. I'm home. This is what I've wanted. The ability to use everything, effectively, quickly, without taking years and years and years of this up and down a hole. Relentlessly moving. And when I was doing karate, I used to wonder why I can do this now. Why am I just repeating these moves over and over again? And why Why has my front foot got to be angled at 90 degrees every time? You know, and you were judged on what it looked like as opposed to how effective it was. And Thai boxing, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here. Thai boxing it is what it is. And everybody, we do the same training, but we develop our own way of fighting.
Yeah.
And nobody criticized. Nobody said, well, that's shit. Well, hang on, I've just knocked him out. Duh, it worked.
There's the test. Yeah. And I
think form's
think
important, obviously. So obviously I'd like to talk to you a bit about, you know, because you found Muay Thai and you realize I can actually hit people with elbows and punch. I can hit them in the head. I can clinch them. I can move them around. What sort of got you into were competitions what you wanted to sort of get involved in? Was it the competitive side?
Yeah, I think it was just, I was getting to that age where that window was starting to close. And I felt, do you know what I mean? And it was like,
you're getting too old.
That's it. If I don't do it now, this is not going to happen. And that for me, Muay Thai, I mean, of course there's the martial arts side of it and all the rest of it. But for me, I wanted that full journey of the psychology of it, if anything, to get in the ring and fight and to help other people do it. You know, that was the thing. I needed that. So I needed to actually compete to sort of fulfill that part of the puzzle. So I'd learned the techniques. I'm big into the conditioning and the actual, the physical qualities that you need to do it. I needed to marry that all together with the psychological element of it and put that all together before that was not going to be an option anymore. And to be honest, it was very late before I actually got competing, just simply, I guess, because of the region we were in, the opportunities to compete weren't there. But also even the experience of the coaches in the region were for training the martial art, not for fighting in the ring. And there's that transposing that and being successful. There's another skill set there and another, there's a lot more to learn in terms of preparing people, not just to do the shapes in the class, but now to actually compete on a day.
Well, I say that to the guys, you know, there's a big difference between being a coach and being an instructor.
Yes.
You know, I tend to say, yes, you've done the instructor's course. That doesn't mean you can coach. You can't coach fighters. It's a completely different thing. So you started competing quite late. So can you remember, how old were you then? Well,
I was over 30 years old.
Yeah, really. That's old, isn't it, for Muay Thai?
Yeah, and I didn't stop until I was 40. So I actually went out to the Amateur World Championships at 34. The cutoff age for that is 35. So I literally got as much as I could in just before, even though obviously fit enough and everything to do it, not injured. But the rules are the rules. That was it. So even if I was the right person in that weight category in the country to represent, too old, couldn't be in it. So that was then that transition more into coaching as my main focus rather than competing myself.
Yeah.
And my reason to compete really has always been about learning to grow as much as I can myself. So really not for my own purposes, but so I could show other people how to do it quicker. Not go the long route like perhaps I had to. It's like, this is it. We can go straight here. Oh, you've got the same goal. Okay. This is how we can get there a lot quicker. So I kind of dragged out as long as I could do. There was also an element that it kind of reflected on me as I was doing it. So while I was still competing, my intention was to go as far as I could do personally, but so I could learn, so that I could show other people to do it as well. Yeah. If that's what they wanted to do. But by competing, I was competition to everybody. So that kind of put a block in between me and helping people because I represented a certain gym. And it's like, oh, no, we compete against your gym. And I'm like, I want to be person to person here. If you're interested, I want to help. I don't care which gym you're from or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, it's that old, the rising tide lifts all the boats. If everyone gets better, that's what happens. I don't really care.
Yeah.
And I found
that's been Tony Myers' mission. Tony, that's been Tony Myers' mission. Although he has his own camp and it's a very small one, he has a small group of always good fighters. And people were like, well, yeah, but he's got his own fight. Yeah, but he wants to teach. He's happy to come to your gym and just teach. He'll tell you everything because he's a sports scientist himself. You know, that's well, he's professor now, I believe.
Yeah,
Professor Tony Myers now. He's up there. And Tony, particularly in the early days, had real problem with it. People didn't trust him that he was actually genuinely interested in trying to help. And it's funny you say that, because I've said to people, yeah, I'll come and teach. Well, that's a rival camp. I go, well, they want to learn Muay Thai. It's exactly what you said, you know. That tide raises all the boats to the same level, and that's what I've always wanted to do. And it's nice to hear, you know, somebody like yourself saying the same thing, because not enough people. There's too many egos. I think, you know,
and I think that was a real power, actually, with then moving out of the full-time gym, having my own little private studio. I was now not seen as a competitor. I'm now kind of almost like a freelance helper, you know. Which is what you're doing now, isn't it? It's putting that message out to a wider audience. And are you getting a lot of take up? Are a lot of people coming back to you and sort of going, oh, we'll listen to Don now? It's an evolving thing. So when this whole internet thing, you know, it's sort of getting more and more important, isn't it?
Yeah.
When I first started up the full-time gym, I started sharing a few sort of blog posts on supplemental training that I was using alongside the Muay Thai.
Right.
And I was, I mean, this was, I don't know if you know the Axe Forum. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Neil, what's his name?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the main player ahead of.
It was,
kind of like,
was that gone now, was it?
Do you know what? I'm not sure if it's still there. It might still be there, but I think everybody's just on Facebook or really Instagram.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think that those forum things are sort of vanishing a bit.
I think so. Yeah, Reddit, I guess, is the other one that's kind of everyone's kind of serving a similar purpose now.
Yeah.
But that was all going. I was posting a few things, and I fully expected that, you know, I was going to. Flaming's the word, isn't it? Going to get flamed out. That someone was going to come in and say, "What are you talking about? That's not how they do it in Thailand. You're talking rubbish." But for me, it was like, you know, I've experienced this. I've seen it. I believe this to be true. I've found this. I'm going to risk that people are just going to slag it all off, but I've got to share it. So I started doing that, and I was really surprised that there was the odd person, but by far the majority were interested and were asking more. They kind of hadn't thought about it. And that was like the seed. I guess that was around sort of 2011, 2012 when I started to do that online.
Yeah.
And that sort of blog site just sort of grew and grew and grew. And in the end, people were asking me for programs and things. And I was like, I could do it in person. I can't think of a way to do it online.
Yeah.
So sort of the engineering side of me sort of went away and figured out how to do that as effectively as possible, as close as it could be to sort of working with me face to face. And I sort of put that all together and made that available to people. And that's kind of then just fueled everything, and it's sort of going along. And I guess with kind of sharing these sort of supplemental ideas that aren't necessarily mainstream in Thailand, that everyone sees as being, you know, obviously the best in the world at Muay Thai.
Yeah.
It takes that sort of open-mindedness to sort of see that there are some elements of what they're doing that could actually be done better. That, it's a full-time job for them. And when I've gone out to train them, some fighters out in Thailand as well with the strength and conditioning side, you know, their kind of mindset is like I've been in industry, you know, the workers, they're kind of like, I've got a working day today and tomorrow, you know, I get a day's rest on Sunday. I'm trying to get through my day as well. And all the coaches are trying to kill me. And now you're trying to kill me as well, you know. And you're making me do things that are making me sore because they're unfamiliar. They don't know that. They're just like, I train sort of 6 hours a day at least since I've been 10.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the last time I saw, because I adjusted to that delayed onset muscle soreness from the new stimulus when I was a kid. I've not seen it again since. And you come in and make me do a shuttle turn, run up and down as a fitness test, and my legs are killing me. And the next day I've got to kick the pads again. You're not my friend, you know? So there's this resistance. They also don't understand why you're doing it and how it can make them better. And there's going to be this big resistance to changing things, even though what they're doing as kind of I refer to it as hitting a glass ceiling. So they just kind of add more and more volume to what they're doing. So longer durations, more rounds, all this kind of stuff to try and push up higher, rather than actually just tweaking some of the other variables to make it improve you without having to just do more with less wear and tear.
I've noticed that in Thailand, because it is a job. They don't really want to change anything, because they're successful at what they do. So why change? That's the way they see it. Whereas, as you say, you know, Tony, I think Tony Myers had the same sort of problem to a certain extent, because he took I think anatomy and physiology was one of his first things, and into sports science. And he was trying to find and explain why the roundhouse kick should be done like this and not this. And he could give you all of the data. All of the evidence suggested that this was a better way of doing it. But Pimu, to be honest, I think Pimu took that on board. Pimu sort of, because they were good friends.
Right.
He took it on board. And I mean, Tony is, you know, probably like you, takes a very scientific and engineering style approach to the way training should be formulated. But like, I understand that completely. The Thais have been doing it. Yeah. How can we tell them? Just Farang, you know, Farang coming along, you're doing that wrong. Hang on, he's won 50 fights. How many did you win? Oh, shit. Okay. So if we just go back a little bit before 2011, 2012, you started a magazine, I remember, Nak Muay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you've forgotten about that. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was sadly, just an online one.
Yeah, that started at a time when it's a really good idea and a good magazine. I think you only did a couple of editions. And I think it started at a time when magazines were sort of falling out of favor, weren't they? Your timing was probably just a little bit out, because, you know, but nobody was to know that, of course.
Yeah, you know. that was kind of a precursor to the blog site, I guess, on reflection now looking back. So it was something that I was doing. I was putting, again, this was just sharing supplemental training ideas.
Yeah.
It was stuff that I was doing that was working. I could see that there were people wasting effort, and I thought, right, let's share some of this stuff to get it out there. And I was trying to do it through as effectively like a electronic Acrobat PDF file that was going out and around. So I did that for quite a while. I can't remember how many episodes I did of that, but that was all at the same time. Obviously, I was working full time. I was fighting and competing, doing all this sort of stuff. And it just got so the overhead on that in terms of time was getting too great. So I had to pare that back and focus on what I was doing. Also, at that stage, I was also starting up the full-time sort of Muay Thai gym myself. That kind of got handed over to me. So yeah, that kind of died a death then, really. But it was more of it was pinned and waiting to come back. And I hadn't really thought that's what happened. It really came back with the blog site.
The blog posts.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think blog posts are a much nicer way of doing it now, aren't they?
Yeah.
And easier for the writer as well, because we just have to write one.
That's it.
As opposed to like a magazine full of articles, and hopefully get contributors.
That's it. And that was the thing. It was then starting to look, can I get other people contributing rather than me having to write everything in it?
Yeah.
And what happened before that, actually, I'd put together this, again, technology fell foul of this one. I produced a round timer on a CD. So I was training in my garage and I needed a round timer.
God, I remember that.
You remember that?
I do.
And it was a really useful tool. But of course, then probably within 3 years or so, there were MP3 players everywhere. So CDs weren't the thing. And also apps that could do round timers over top of whatever.
Yeah, the apps just took over, didn't they?
So, yeah. So that.
But you were the first.
Yeah, I did it first.
You were the first. Yeah. You heard it here. Don Heatrick was the first to introduce a ring time. It was on a CD. If you remember what those look like, I might have one around the office somewhere.
Yeah, as a coaster.
Oh, yeah, as a coaster. Yeah, you're right. Oh, God. Yeah, the ring timer.
But as a result of doing that, so I'd approached, it was a Combat magazine. Paul Clifton, wasn't it, the guy?
Yeah, it was Paul, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd got my advert that I was putting in there, and he sort of said, what is it? What's it do? And all this kind of stuff. And I sort of explained, I had to write it and send it to him. And he said, do you fancy doing a regular article in here on training? I was like, okay. So I did it, and I did that for 3 years. Actually, it was a regular article in there, and it was in Combat magazine originally, but he also wanted an equivalent in traditional karate magazine and the Taekwondo and Korean martial arts magazine
that's
as
right.
well.
He had those other titles, didn't he?
So I was doing those as well, all on. It's basically supplemental training. So it was kind of, I was looking at timers because I was looking at the energy systems that were being used. So I was looking at not just working just the rounds that you compete at, but what work and rest intervals with what sort of durations, all varied, create certain fitness adaptations in the body that will develop your fitness in a way that just practicing rounds purely as you have been doing are kind of missing the point on. So that was what I was kind of up to with that, and it kind of expanded from there. But yeah, God, I'd forgotten about that. My memory is actually, I'm terrible at thinking back. I'm one of these thinking forwards people all the time. My wife fills the gaps on this.
This is what's been happening to me when I've been listening to people doing podcasts that mentioned something like Stuart Hurst was telling me stuff. He said, "Do you not remember the time in Blackpool on the beach with Toddy?" And I was like, "Oh my God." He said, "Yeah, I think I was 15." And I was like, ah. And there's things that were coming back and working on films with him. And I'd completely forgotten even working on films with this guy. And he was reminding me of stuff that had happened, like, you know, a long time ago, back in the 70s, before you were born, Don. So,
yeah.
So, what interests me, right, is because I know you were heavily involved in the martial arts, particularly Muay Thai, obviously, and that's how I got to know you, through Nick Pammon and the gym down in Bury St Edmunds.
Yeah.
And you'd really good fight career. I mean, didn't you get a silver medal in the Europeans? Or
that's right. Yes.
Yeah. That was the sort of the highest point of your career. Yeah.
I guess it was. I mean, I fought at the World Championships literally sort of, was probably about 6 months before that. And as with tournaments, it's all like the draw, isn't it? You know, so in my weight category, that particular year, this was 2007, I think it was. My particular weight category was the biggest one. So we had extra fighters in our division. We had to sort of divvy those all up. There was me and one other fighter. The Japanese champion had to do an extra fight compared to everyone else in our weight category. Everyone else got the bye. We had to fight. The winner out of us two went through to the next round. And you looked in the audience, and all the rest of our sort of in our weight category all watching us, you know. But I managed to beat him. I then went on to fight the French champion. That was a close fight, but I beat him. All the time I was kind of gaining experience because I was still, you know, I was still learning to compete properly, really.
Yeah.
And then I drew on my third fight the defending 2 times world champion from Russia. And that was a hell of a fight. First round, I absolutely got smashed. And then I just kind of woke up and went, I'm not going to respect this guy. I'm just going to go at him.
Yeah.
And in the end, I got a split decision loss. So he went through, which obviously the right thing. He's the defending champion anyway. But that was like, I had 3 fights but didn't get a medal, whereas everybody else in every other weight category, if they got as far as 3 fights, they definitely got a medal. So I was like, one more round in, and I would have definitely got a medal. So I kind of left that one, having learned a hell of a lot and been really pleased with really how that had gone and what I'd found out, what I'd learned and about myself, but also about the whole sport and competition like that. But didn't come away with kind of nothing. And then I actually picked up an injury. I got patellar tendonitis, so I couldn't train properly. But I was still competing, and I was still selected for the England team. And the European Championships came up, and I was still selected for the team, even though I was injured. But I had to pull out because I hadn't trained properly for 3 months. I was trying to rest this knee. But one of the other guys that I was training had also been selected for the team. So this was really good. This is where I was coaching other people to do the same sort of thing as well, rather than it's just me. So he was going out. So I went out to corner for him anyway and look after him. And when I got there, they said, we still haven't withdrawn your name. We haven't got anyone at this weight category. So, and I deliberately not taken my gum shield, not taken my shorts, you know, because I'm like, I'm not going to be tempted. and I still bloody did it.
And of course you did, because you're a competitor, aren't you?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was going around the local sports shops doing a boil and bite gum shield. And
Oh no. For the European Championships, yeah, a
Yeah.
£1.50 gum
Yeah,
shield.
it was horrible. Every time I opened my mouth, it dropped out. You know,
Yeah, they're rubbish. Yeah,
really bad. But yeah, I managed to come away with a silver medal.
And that's with a knee injury.
I hadn't trained properly for 3 months. My fitness was bloody terrible, to be honest. First round, I was winning. I was doing really well. I'm like, I'm going to get this. I'm not just taking part. I'm going to get this in the final. And then I just lost my fitness, and he just turned it up. And it was actually naturally a weight category heavier than I should have been. So it all was kind of not adding up very well. But yeah, I came back with a silver medal from that. And that was kind of like, well, I got that really, I felt, because I didn't feel like I fought very well. I just kind of showed up and did the best I could. I thought that I felt, but I was fighting better at the World Championships, but didn't get anything. So it's almost felt like that was for that rather than what I did then. But that's just the way my head.
How old were you then, Don? Just to put it in perspective.
That was I was just shy of 34 still. So 35 would have been can't compete. So it literally was, and that was in my head.
That was your last chance, wasn't it? Really.
So when they said, "Did you want to fight?" and I was thinking, yeah, okay then.
Let's get it in there. Let's get. What's the worst that can happen? Fighting with a knee injury.
Yeah, that wasn't.
And out of shape as well, as you said.
Yeah, that was a fun experience.
Yeah. So, what I'm fascinated by is it's going back again. You're an engineer, obviously, so you have an analytical way of looking at things, diagnostic way of looking at things. Is that what you sort of? Is that what allowed you, if you like, to start to focus on scientific approaches to training? I mean, because you're not formally trained in any physiology, anatomy, sports science? No,
not sports science. It's one of those things I've been thinking about doing when I did all my strength and conditioning qualifications to kind of like cross train, if you like, to come from engineering to being right now. Now I'm going to do this sports pursuit really as a career. I was considering doing like a master's degree to kind of in sports science to kind of retrain as such. But it got to, I spoke to, there's a guy called, I think it was John Goodman. When I was doing my strength and conditioning, he was also doing the master's degrees on sports science. And I approached him and said, this is what I've done. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing this to really bridge the gap. I've done a lot of sort of self-study, but I really want to get the formal side of this as well. And he said, well, looking at what you've done with your engineering stuff, I would take you straight onto the master's sports science degree. That'd be fine. You could do that. And I was kind of looked at that, looked at how much time it was going to be, as well as all the other things that were going on, and of course the cost of it. And it's fully been, and it's still there now, something I might do one day when I can afford the time and the money, of course, as well. But it's almost, because that side of it would be useful if I was working for someone else, but I can't ever see me doing that now. I kind of enjoy doing things the way I like to do things, according to my own personal core values. And I've always felt that whenever I've been swayed in a different way because I've had to, I've not been very happy doing it. So I guess I've kind of deliberately forged this path where I am self-employed, doing my own thing, and I kind of answer to myself in terms of everything that I do. And I'm much happier doing that. And it's almost like the degree, it'd almost be an ego thing, I think. I'd get the degree just because I felt like I should have one, rather than I really need one to do what I'm doing, because I can kind of study the bits I want to in as much detail as I'd like to, and get hold of the people that I need to without doing the whole course. And there's always like parts of the syllabus, isn't there, that you kind of like, okay, I have to do this to tick the boxes.
Exactly.
It doesn't really.
I was going to say that I do a lot of work. Well, I was doing a lot of work at the University of Birmingham Medical School, and most of the exercises the students have, they have no interest in, but they simply have to tick the box to get the academic qualification, even though it doesn't make any sense. And in a lot of cases, is actually defunct as a methodology. It's no longer applicable to what's happening in the world today, but it's traditional. And you have to do it to get your medical degree. It's quite shocking, actually, because it's a waste of time and resources. And I think the degree could probably be 3 years rather than 5.
Right.
And I know a group of people called physicians associates. You may have heard the term.
Yes.
They're a go-between between a nurse and a doctor. So these are postgrads who've got a biomedical science background. Doesn't have to be medicine, but as long as it's biomed sciences, and they do 2 years intensive training, medical training, and come out the other end as highly, I've worked with them, highly competent clinicians. And I would go so far as to say better than a lot of doctors who come out after 5 years, you know?
Yeah.
But the focus is on, the methodology is very different. It's what works, what can I use now to make a difference to people, as opposed to, this is an interesting theory, let's explore that. Yeah, that's like, 3,000 years old. We don't need to know that, it has no application. Might have done in Greece, but not anymore. So in some ways, what I'm trying to say is that in many ways, I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice doing a degree, but I understand why you want to do it,
Yeah.
Like you've sort of reflected on it, haven't you? And sort of said, well, maybe it's an ego thing,
Yeah. And I felt like that with the fighting in the end as well. It was kind of like, why do I still have this urge to fight? I mean, even now I still kind of like, like, no, you're going to be 48 this year. Don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's just silly. But there's still something, isn't there? You're still like, but then I just think that whole bit, I then become competition to everybody. And I potentially, that's not my intention.
No.
If I was to fight, it wouldn't be really, I always look at fighting is rather than sort of competing against the person who's against me, it's more like they're a test to see how my training's been.
Yeah.
How effective has that last cycle been? How much have I learned and grown? And basically each opponent presents a new challenge and a new test. And I'm now passing the next test and the next test. So I've never seen individuals as like someone I've got to beat and overcome. It's like, okay, how I prepared deal with this situation and what this person presents to me. But I've kind of realized that all of my pushing to find that is really just so that I can help other people do it. That's really what my purpose is.
I was going to say, that's your purpose, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's interesting that, because as long as I've been doing these podcasts, I've asked a similar thing of people. I said, well, would you be able to define your purpose? And quite a lot of people don't know what I'm talking about. No. They're like, well, I've got these goals. I went, no, not goals. Those are different. Purpose drives goals, So your purpose, therefore, if I put it like Fight Club, I put a gun to your head and say, what is it you want to do? You'd say, I'd be a teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've spent a long time, I guess, kind of skirting around things and trying to, not really knowing what was my purpose, and it's just knowing some things made me feel good, some things definitely didn't. And the more I kind of started to sort of reflect a bit and just thinking, okay, what's the commonality here? What really drives me here? I've essentially boiled it down to and I guess these are in priority order, really. It's my first sort of core value is love. My family, everything I do is for them and I want to support them. And then the next one is growth. And that's growth of myself, but also other people. I feel like I can't help other people grow unless I've learned how to grow myself.
Yeah.
So that's that next bit. And then the next bit as a next tier is, and this is something that sort of came out later, was contribution, that sort of sharing it with other people. So that was like the next level. And then I feel like, so as long as I'm doing things that align with that, everything's great in Don's world. I'm Mr. Smiley. And the last bit that I've then realized almost as a tack on was adventure. I've always needed that. And I think that physical challenge, the physical risk is all part of that. I've needed that. So it's why, sports without contact, just not adventurous enough for me. It doesn't spark me up. But I'd also say adventure's discovering something new, and that's learning as well. And I love all that sort of side of it. I'm always looking for something else that can kind of contribute to what I'm doing, and never settling for what I've done or for what is presented to everybody in whatever field it is, as that static and that's the best way. we're always kind of learning. And I kind of, that adventure there is a big part of what I do. So as long as I'm living by all those things, that's my purpose, really.
So what's Don's next big adventure?
Do you know what? It's affording the time to really go into all the areas that I've wanted to research and create something that's practical, that's of practical use to people, rather than just being theory. That's the bit I've not had so far. I've not engineered a lifestyle, if you like, that's allowed me to do that. There's always pulls, isn't there, on your time?
Yeah.
And I think the clearer I get on everything, the more I realize that's really what I want to do.
Okay.
So that I've got well, pages and pages. It's bloody hard disks full of notes of things that are pinned to come back to. I'm kind of big on, I guess, with my sort of personality traits, I like to see the bigger picture. So I'm quite good at zooming in on the detail when I need to, but I'm really quite good at zooming back and just seeing where everything fits. And I've got loads of things.
That's engineering, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's being an engineer.
I
You know,
think
because
so.
I served my time as an engineer as well. And when you're voicing exactly what I'm thinking, what I think about, you know, sometimes you have to zone in on specifics. You have to have a plan and you have to have detail. But other times you get so engrossed in the detail, you miss.
Yeah.
You won't see the wood for the trees, sort of thing. You know, you're like, hang on, whoa, stand back, look at the big picture. It's, you know, like,
have I deviated off course here a bit?
yeah,
to be honest.
yeah. And it's so easy sometimes when you get trapped in specifics. And I see people doing that in training. They're zoning in on one particular facet of their training. You know, say their strategy or whatever when they're fighting. And my job as a coach is to go, whoa, come on, stand back from this. We need to take a bit, you know, look at a bigger picture here.
Yeah.
And often, what I've noticed as well about you, just from having this conversation, how internalized you've made a lot of the concept. So you spend a lot of time on self-reflection and want to get a handle on it first before you teach it.
Yes.
Is that fair to say? Rather
Definitely.
than just go, oh, I know that, I'll go and teach it.
Yeah. No, I need to know what purpose this serves in the overall picture. How I'm presenting it to someone. It's almost, unless I understand that myself, I don't feel comfortable teaching it yet.
Yeah.
I've always been kind of lead by example type coach rather than just do as I say. So unless I can do it and understand and really feel what I'm showing, then I need to work on it first before I'm prepared to kind of show it to you. And that's kind of the way I see that.
And that's what teaching's about, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like showing anything that's half baked. It's kind of like, this isn't fully fleshed out yet. If I do in any way, I'll say, right, this is an experiment. This is something I'm playing with at the moment.
Yeah.
Let's see how it works for you.
You have to have that caveat.
Yeah. And
no, but I see
sometimes it doesn't.
Over the years, I see so many teachers who they think they actually do know everything. And I say, look, I've been doing this 50 years. Trust me. And I know nothing yet. And I'm still learning, you know.
Yeah.
And you see these young guys who've maybe trained for 3 or 4 years. They've had a couple of fights. They're running their own clubs and camps. And you can't tell them anything, you know. It's quite sad, really, because as I've got older, I don't know whether you felt the same, but as I got older, I thought things would get more and more open. People would be even more open. But they appear to be more insular now because it's wrapped up with, I guess it's wrapped up with running their own business as well. And they don't want to feel that they have to go to anybody else. And like you say, you've put yourself in a great position because you're now no longer affiliated to a specific group.
Yeah.
So that makes things a lot easier, doesn't it? For others.
That's it.
And for you.
You're more approachable, you know, and it's you feel you can sort of directly help people more without rubbing people up the wrong way. The only issue, of course, you do have is that some of what you're saying is contradictory to some of what their coaches are saying.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, and I always kind of explain that, you know, I've gone in deep on this stuff. They're running a business. They've learned Muay Thai, the physical preparation part and some of the mental aspects as well. They probably haven't had the time to deep dive into as much. They're just doing what they were shown. They haven't had time to kind of see, is there an evolution to this now? the engineering bit that kind of comes out here is kind of looking for the failures as such. So that using like, this is where I first came across it. It seems to be more and more popular now, but that Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule,
Yeah.
and trying to find the 20% priority things rather than those trivial many.
Mm.
And I'm always trying to bring people, there is all of this going on. Don't become distracted by these. Those are the 80% that make a little bit of an effect on what you're trying to do. These are the 20%.
Mm.
Go here, you're going to have the 80% of the result with 20% of the effort.
Yeah.
Don't dilute what you're doing with getting distracted by all of this other stuff. There's a lot of all this other stuff at the moment, especially with the social media and internet. Loads of people are being bombarded with stuff. And I think you need to be able to, as a coach, act as a filter and say, yes, this stuff is relevant at a certain stage, but right now, these are the bits that are going to move you forward now. And then we readdress it, go back in and have another look, and it might be something completely different now.
Yeah, it's having the linguistic skills to A, express yourself, and B, influence others as well, isn't it? You know, but in a way that's, you know, not seen as showing their instructor to be, you know, less able, if you like.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's something, that's a whole other topic, isn't it? Talking about the linguistics of coaching and teaching, how you influence other people through your manner, your attitude, your physiology, and your knowledge as well. Because some people are threatened by high levels of knowledge. You know,
right.
I know this sounds terrible, and some of my students will be listening probably, but I have to dumb down my training in some places. Whereas I'm teaching at the university, it's a different level of understanding they want. Yeah. If that makes sense. Definitely. And that's not like, it's not, you know, deriding the, you know, either camp really. It's just, but it's just a fact of life, you know.
It is.
And especially when you're going in and challenging what an instructor says. I always say, look, this is just more tools for your toolbox. Yeah. And the more tools you've got, the more capable you are of fixing things, the more choices you have. It's better to have choice than not have choice. And, exactly. and that often people sort of go, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, yeah. You know?
I try and my mental model is that there are principles and there are methods. The principles are always true.
Always, yeah.
The methods.
Well, we could have a philosophical argument about truth, but it's not the. We're not going to talk about truth or knowledge, right? Okay, sorry, Don.
Yeah, but so the principles are, you need to get your head around those, and that's kind of like the big picture stuff. And then the methods are all the different ways, the weird and wonderful ways we can actually exploit those principles to make you better, whatever you're doing, and those change depending on what's available to you, what stage of your development you're in, what stage of a fight camp you're in, all this kind of stuff, which method you're going to use to achieve that effect. But people get kind of dialed into all these many methods and can't see how do they actually tunnel back to a certain principle. And it's actually it unclutters your mind so much if you understand the principles and then just see where things plug into those principles, and you're dialing those up or down then that way. That's how I kind of go about it.
And that all the years, you know, all the years I was writing on combat, and all the years I've been teaching martial arts and seeing other martial artists and observing them and learning from them, I've noticed that there's a few, there's not many, and they have taught principles. I was lucky in that my first karate instructor when I was a kid, I don't think he knew it, but he was teaching fundamental principles of movement and body mechanics. And he actually said, when somebody, I remember him saying it, I was 14, I think, at the time, and I overheard him say it to another guy. The guy says, "Oh, so what style do you do?" And he said, "Oh, the style of 2 arms and 2 legs. Oh, and my head as well. I use my head a lot." And I thought, he's got a point there. You know, how does the human body move? It can only move in a specific way. And we all do more or less the same thing anyway. Some of us take a longer route to get to it, but
it's that difference as well, though, isn't it, Bob? With everyone's got 2 arms, 2 legs, but the proportions of those and
different.
And the way you move.
And the mind is different, and the mindset is different. But so I understand what you're saying. There's a fundamental principle that underlies how the body functions.
Yes.
And your job as a coach, specifically when you work on one-on-one, which is always a lot easier, is to dial into their specific
Yeah.
way of thought and physiology, I guess. The mental, the spiritual, and the physical.
Yes. Yeah. But if
You know,
someone's moving according to the principles, then, you know, that's right, regardless then of what their stature is, what their physical capability is. They're still abiding by the principles. I don't like seeing like a whole group of people that are being taught and they all look exactly the same.
exactly
it's like,
the same. Yeah, that was karate.
Yeah.
That was karate.
Yeah.
For you know, that's what you see.
Mm.
Automatons who copy exactly what the instructor's doing with little or no, well, you couldn't criticize back in those days. You couldn't criticize what the Japanese were doing. They were right.
Yes.
Even though the British would sometimes kick the hell out of them in competition, the Japanese were still right. But he lifted his heel. Oh, no, he didn't. Yeah, he did. I saw that Japanese guy lifted his heel. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. I thought, am I going mad? I remember watching a karate guy lifting his heel, and I was told, never lift your heel, never lift your heel.
Yeah.
And luckily, as I say, I had a good instructor, and I was able to sort the wheat from the chaff, and like yourself, you know, keep an open mind and move on.
Yeah.
Now, look, we've done an hour.
We have.
Yeah. What I'd like, you know, I think people would be interested. I certainly would be interested. I don't care if anybody else out there is interested. I'd be interested go into more detail about the strength and conditioning training you're doing and the coaching in more detail. Talk about methodology. You know, let people have a deep understanding of what you mean by principles, and how you can help them. You can you know, give them the tools to make them better coaches, better students, and I think fighters are the ones who are always interested. Because fighters just want to fight. Coaches sometimes have a hidden agenda, you know. But I know for a fact there's a lot of my friends out there who have been coaching Muay Thai a long time, would get a lot from having a listen to you chat. Now, I'm not asking you to give all your secrets away, you know.
No, do you know what? I'm happy to share as much as possible, mate.
I know you are. I know. So would you like to come on and do part 2 at some point?
Certainly. Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
And we'll talk in more depth about strength and conditioning and what you're doing now, I guess, at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So look, thanks very much for coming on, Don. It's been a real pleasure. And we'll catch up in part 2. But for people listening, you just listen to Don Heatrick. If you check the description box below on YouTube, you'll see all of his details and information in there. Where you can be contacted as well, Don, obviously.
Yes.
So get in touch with him. I highly recommend him. So thank you, Don. Thank you very much, sir.
Cheers, Bob. It was good stuff.